Hello, lords and ladies, and welcome to Wesley's Storybook Castle. Today, we are going to be going over a very special story, so don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with anybody who might benefit from this story. Today on Wesley's Storybook Castle, we are going to be talking about Hansel and Gretel, so don't forget to check the description below. That way, you can get your free activity book download, and you can play along with us as we read and do some fun activities. By a great forest dwelt a poor woodcutter with his new wife and his 2 children. The boy was called Hansel and the girl Gretel. The woodcutter had little, and once, when a great famine came, he could no longer even get daily bread. What is to become of us? How are we to feed our poor children when we no longer have anything even for ourselves, said the woodcutter. Today, we are going to be going over a very special story, so don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with anybody who might benefit from this story. Today on Wesley's Storybook Castle, we are going to be talking about Hansel and Gretel, so don't forget to check the description below. That way, you can get your free activity book download, and you can play along with us as we read and do some fun activities. By a great forest dwelt a poor woodcutter with his new wife and his 2 children. The boy was called Hansel and the girl Gretel. The woodcutter had little, and once, when a great famine came, he could no longer even get daily bread. What is to become of us? How are we to feed our poor children when we no longer have anything even for ourselves, said the woodcutter. I'll tell you what, husband, answered the woman. Early tomorrow morning, we will take the children out into the forest where it is thickest. There, we will light a fire for them, give each of them 1 more piece of bread, and then we will go to our work and leave them alone. They will not find the way home again, and we shall be rid of them. No, said the man. I will not do that. How can I bear to leave my children alone in the forest? The wild animals would tear them to pieces. Then we must all die of hunger. You may as well plane the planks just for our coffins. And she left him no peace until he consented. The 2 children had also not been able to sleep for their hunger, and had heard what the stepmother had said to their father. When the day dawned, but before the sun had risen, the woman came up and awoke the 2 children, saying, Up, you sluggards, we are going into the forest to fetch wood. She gave them each a piece of bread and said, There is something for your dinner, but do not eat it up before then, for you will get nothing else. Gretel took the bread under her apron, as Hansel had the pebbles hidden in his pocket. They all set out together on their way into the forest. When they walked a short time, Hansel stood still and peeped back at the house, and did so again and again. His father said, Hansel, what are you looking at and staying behind for? Pay attention, and do not forget to use those legs of yours. Hansel walked while he did. He constantly was throwing one of the little white pebble stones out of his pocket onto the road. When they reached into the middle of the forest, the father said, Now, children, pile up some wood, and I will light a fire that you will not be cold. Hansel and Gretel gathered the brushwood together as a high little hill. The brushwood was lighted, and when the flames were burning very high, the woman said, Now, children, lay yourselves down by the fire and rest. We will go into the forest and cut some wood. When we are done, we will come back and fetch you away. But Hansel comforted her and said, Just wait a little until the moon has risen, and then we will soon find a way. And when the moon had risen, Hansel took his little sister by the hand and followed the pebbles, which shone like newly coined silver pieces, and showed them the way. They walked a whole night long, and by the break of the day came once more to their father's house. They knocked at the door, and when the woman opened it and saw that Hansel and Gretel She said, "You naughty children, why have you slept so long in the forest? We thought you were never coming back at all." The father, however, rejoiced. The next night, the couple again spoke of leaving the children in the forest. The children, however, were awake and heard the conversation. When the old folks were asleep, Hansel again got up and wanted to go out and pick up pebbles as he had done before, but the woman had locked the door, and Hansel could not get out. Early in the morning came a woman and took the children out of their beds. A piece of bread was given to them, but it was smaller than the time before. On the way into the forest, Hansel crumbled in his pocket, and often stood still and threw a morsel on the ground. "Hansel, why do you stop and look around?" said the father. "Go on, come on." Hansel, little by little, threw crumbs all over the ground on the path. The woman led the children still deeper into the forest, where they had never in their lives been before. Then a great fire was made, and the mother said, "Just sit there, children, and when you are tired, you may sleep a little. We are going into the forest to cut some wood, and in the evening, when we are done, we will come and fetch you away." When it was noon, Gretel shared a piece of bread with Hansel, who had scattered his by the way. Then they fell asleep, and evening passed, but no one came for the poor children. They did not wake until it was dark night, and Hansel comforted his little sister and said, "Just wait, Gretel, until the moon rises, and then we shall see the crumbs of bread which I have strewn about, and they will show us the way home again." When the moon came out, they set out, but they found no crumbs, for many thousands of birds would fly about in the woods and the field to pick them all up. Hansel said to Gretel, "We shall soon find the way." But they did not find it. They walked the whole night. And the next day, too, from morning till evening, but they did not get out of the forest and were very hungry, for they had nothing to eat but 2 or 3 berries which they had grew on the ground. And as they were so weary that their legs would carry them no longer, it was now 3 mornings since they had left their father's house, but they began to walk again. But they always came deeper into the forest, and if it did not help to come soon, they must die of hunger and weariness. When it was midday, they came across the most interesting house. When they approached the little house, they saw it was built of bread and covered with cakes, but the windows were clear sugar. Suddenly, the door opened, and a woman as old as the hills, supported herself on crutches, came creeping out. Hansel and Gretel were so terribly frightened that they let fall what they had in their hands. The old woman, however, nodded her head and said, "Oh, dear children, who has brought you here? Do come in and stay with me. No harm shall happen to you." She took them both by the hand and led them into the little house. Then good food was set before them, milk and pancakes with sugar and apples and nuts. Afterwards, 2 pretty little beds were covered with clean white linen, and Hansel and Gretel lay down in them and thought they were in heaven. The old woman only pretended to be so kind. She was in reality a wicked witch who lay in wait for children, and had built that little house of bread in order to entice them there. When children fell into her power, she killed it, cooked it, and ate it, and that is what she did. But they have seen keen scent like beasts, and are aware when a human being draws near. When Hansel and Gretel came into the neighborhood, she laughed with malice and said mockingly, "I have them. They shall not escape me again." Early in the morning, before the children were awake, she was already up, and when she saw both of them sleeping, looking so pretty with their plump rosy cheeks, she muttered to herself, "That will be a dainty mouthful." Then she seized Hansel with her shriveled hand and carried him into a little stable and locked him behind a grated door. Scream as he might, it would not help him. Then she went and took Gretel, shook her till she awoke, and cried, "Get up, lazy thing, fetch some water and cook something good for your brother. He is in the stable." Outside, and is to be made fat. When he is fat, I will eat him. Gretel began to weep bitterly, but it was all in vain, for she was forced to do what the wicked witch commanded. And now the best food was cooked for poor Hansel, but Gretel but nothing but crab shells. Every morning the woman crept into the little stable and cried, Hansel, stretch out your finger, that I may feel you, if you soon become fat. Hansel, however, stretched out a little bone to her, and the old woman, who had dim eyes, could not see it, and thought it was Hansel's finger, and was astonished that she was no way in fattening him. When 4 weeks had gone by, and Hansel still remained thin, she was seized by impatience and could not wait any longer. "Now then, Gretel," she cried, "stir yourself and bring some water. Let Hansel be fat or lean. Tomorrow I will kill him and cook him." Ah, how the poor sister did lament what she had to fetch the water, and how her tears did flow on her cheeks. "Dear God, do help us," she cried. "If the wild beasts in the forest had not devoured us, we should at any rate have died together." "Just keep your noise to yourself," said the old woman. "It won't help you at all." Early in the morning, Gretel had to go out and hang up the cauldron with the water and light a fire. "We will bake first," said the old woman. "I have already heated the oven and kneaded the dough." She pushed poor Gretel out to the oven, from which flames of the fire were already darting. "Creep in," she said, the witch, "and if properly heated, so that we can put the bread in." And once Gretel is inside, she intended to shut him in the oven and let her bake in it. And then she would eat her too. But when Gretel saw what she had in mind and said, "I do not know how I am to do it. How do I get in?" "Silly goose," said the old woman. "The door is big enough. Just look, I can get in it myself." And she crept up and thrust her head in the oven. Then Gretel gave her a push that drove her far into it and shut the iron door. She fastened the bolt. Oh, and then she began to howl horribly, but Gretel ran away, and the godless witch was miserable and burnt to death. Gretel, however, ran like lightning to Hansel, opened his little stable, and cried, "Hansel, we are saved! The old witch is dead!" Then Hansel sprang like a bird from his cage when it was opened. "These are far better than pebbles," said Hansel, and thrust into his pockets whatever could be got in. And Gretel said, "I too will take something home with me," and filled a pinafore full. "But now we must be off," said Hansel. "That way we will get out of the forest." When they had walked for 2 hours, they came by a stretch of water. "We cannot cross," said Hansel. "I see no footplank and no bridge." "And there is also no ferry," answered Gretel, "but a white duck is swimming there. If I ask her, she will help us over." Then she cried, "Little duck, dost thou see? Hansel and Gretel are waiting for thee. There's never a plank or a bridge in sight. Take us across, on thy back so white." The duck came to them, and Hansel seated himself on its back and told his sister to sit by him. "No," replied Gretel, "that will be too heavy for the little duck. She shall take us across, one after the other." The good little duck did so, and when they were safely across and had walked for a short time, the forest seemed to be more familiar to them, and at a length they saw from afar the father's house. Then they began to run, pushing into the parlor, and threw themselves around their father's neck. The man had not known one happy hour since he had left the children in the forest. The woman, however, was dead. Gretel emptied her pinafore until the pearls and precious stones ran about the room, and Hansel threw one handful after another out of his pocket to add to them. The end. That was our story of Hansel and Gretel. You'll notice as we went through, there were certain words that were underlined and made bold. Make sure to look at those words. The first activity you'll be going through are these coloring pages. This first one has you drawing the witch's house that looks so wonderful and sweet. She's got a charming smile on now, but we know the truth. She's really an evil, wicked witch. So, if you haven't yet, make sure you download the packet by clicking the link below. It's absolutely free. The next coloring page we have for you is the witch standing over a locked up Hansel. And when you're done with those coloring pages, time to do some vocabulary. While we were going through, like I said, you saw plenty of underlined words. Copy each of those words into the column below, labeled word. Then, using the context clues around the word, which just means the words around the word that help you figure out what it means, give us what your definition of it might be. Then, make a small drawing of the word. That way, you can really put it down to memory. Once you've collected your words, you'll be able to do this word search. There are 6 words to find in this word search. It will be fun and help you remember those words. Well, I hope you enjoyed. And don't forget to check the bottom below to download the free activity packet. Play this with your kids. Subscribe so that you'll see more of our stories. We have 10 planned for our first season. We're going to go through tons and tons of classics like Hansel and Gretel, The 3 Little Pigs, and even Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs, as well as a few classics from all around the world. Please make sure you like this video, leave us a comment with how your children enjoyed the activities, and let us know how we might be able to improve. We really appreciate it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and if you know another parent or child who'd benefit from this content, please make sure to share it with them. Every little bit helps. In the bottom description as well, you'll see a link to Audible. Audible is a great way that you can get books to be read to your kids or yourself anytime. I love listening to audiobooks on Audible, and it'll really help your kids enjoy reading as well. So, download a free audiobook in the description below. It'll help out the channel and make it so that we can make more of these free videos and free content. Finally, we have an activity for you to bring the whole story together. Remember how Hansel dropped all those breadcrumbs? Well, he was feeding the birds. With the help of an adult, you can use this simple, easy step-by-step guide to making a bird feeder. It'll be tons of fun and will help you learn and take care of our wonderful environment. There's all types of things a bird can eat. What kind of birds will you see with your bird feeder? Well, lords and ladies, make sure to go out and have a magical time. Thanks for watching Wesley's Storybook Castle.